Ever feel like you're drowning in information? I mean, there's so much out there these days, and who's got time to sift through it all? I know I don't. So that's exactly why we do these deep dives, right? To give you those essential nuggets of knowledge, straight up, no chaser.
Exactly. We're all about that shortcut to genuine understanding.
So today we're taking a deep dive into Susan Cain's Quiet, the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking.
Now this book, it's a real eye-opener, especially if you, like me, have ever felt like you're on the quieter side. You know, maybe not always the life of the party.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes you feel like you got to be on all the time, like super outgoing to really get ahead.
Exactly. And Cain really digs into that, the whole idea of the extrovert ideal, like how do we get here, where being super social and assertive is seen as the gold standard.
Right, like the only path to success or something.
Well, it's interesting because she points to this big shift in Western culture. Like way back in the 19th century, it was all about character, your inner values, honesty, integrity, that kind of stuff.
So being a good person was more important than being a charming one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But then, boom, 20th century rolls around, and it's all about personality. Charisma, boldness, always got to be making a splash.
So the quiet types, they kind of got pushed to the sidelines, you're saying?
In a way, yeah. And Cain, she even shares this funny story about being at a Tony Robbins seminar. You know, Tony Robbins, like Mr. High Energy himself.
Oh, yeah, I've seen him on YouTube. Guy's like a walking motivational poster.
Right. So Cain, she's there feeling totally out of place. It's just a super intense, expressive environment. And she's like, whoa, this is not my scene.
Makes you wonder how many introverts are out there feeling that same way, like they got to pretend to be someone they're not just to fit in.
Oh, for sure. But Cain, she makes this crucial point. Real influence, it doesn't always have to be loud or flashy. Think about Rosa Parks. Her act of defiance, it was quiet, personal, yet it sparked a whole movement.
Wow, yeah, that's a great example. Quiet strength can be so powerful.
Absolutely. And Cain, she ties this rise of the extrovert ideal to like big changes in America, especially with the whole rise of industry and competition.
So all of a sudden, it's not enough to just be good at what you do. You got to be good at selling yourself, too.
Yep. Networking, self-promotion, all that jazz becomes super important. And you even see this whole mighty likable fellow ideal emerge in the early 1900s.
So what, like the guy who's always got a smile and a firm handshake?
Basically. And think about the self-help books that were popular back then, like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's all about those extroverted skills, right? Smiling, remembering names, being a great conversationalist.
Yeah, makes you think. Now, Cain brings up Abraham Lincoln, a president who obviously had a huge impact. But would he have thrived in today's super extroverted world? It's an interesting question.
It really is. And it makes you question this assumption that the best leaders are always the most charismatic ones, right?
Right, like maybe quiet leadership has its own strengths.
Exactly. And there's actually research to back this up. Studies show that while extroverts might be great at leading teams that are really proactive and outward focused, introverts, they could really shine when they're leading teams that are more independent, creative, the kind that need space to think and come up with their own ideas.
Oh, I see. So different leadership styles for different kinds of teams.
Right. And it all comes down to how introverts naturally lead. They're good listeners. They give people space to work on their own. They don't feel the need to dominate every conversation.
So it's more about guidance than, like, constant direction.
Exactly. And Cain even brings up this example of a really successful software executive. Quiet guy, not at all the stereotypical loud CEO type, but he leads by listening and empowering his team.
Interesting. So his strength is in supporting others to do their best work.
Precisely. And it's not just anecdotal. There's research on leaders like Gandhi, who are very much introverted, but incredibly effective. Makes you rethink the whole leadership paradigm, doesn't it?
It really does. And this whole idea of collaboration, the new groupthink, as Cain calls it, we're always told that working together is the key to success, but is it always?
That's what Cain challenges. I mean, think about open plan offices, brainstorming sessions. Everyone's always supposed to be bouncing ideas off each other.
Oh, tell me about it. I feel like I spend half my life in meetings.
Right. And here's the kicker. Cain points to research that actually shows brainstorming groups, they often come up with fewer and less creative ideas than individuals working alone.
Really? That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. So for introverts, that alone time, it's not them being antisocial or lazy. It's often when their best ideas come to life.
They need that space to think and process.
Exactly. And Cain uses Steve Wozniak, the guy who pretty much invented the personal computer, as a prime example. He did a lot of that work solo, which is kind of ironic given the whole collaborative hype in Silicon Valley these days.
So going beyond this cultural stuff, Cain also delves into the biology behind introversion and extroversion. Is it all nature, or is there some nurture in there too?
It's both, really. She brings up this concept called the orchid hypothesis, which I find super helpful. Basically, it suggests that introverts, they're kind of like orchids. They can thrive in the right environment, but they're more sensitive to their surroundings than, say, extroverts who are more like dandelions, able to pop up anywhere.
So introverts, they might need a bit more of a tailored environment to truly flourish.
Yeah, exactly. And this links back to research by Jerome Kagan, who studied infants and found that some were highly reactive to stimulation, while others were more chill. Those high reactive babies, they might be more likely to grow up to be introverted adults.
So it's like they're wired to process the world more intensely. Is that what you're saying?
That's the idea. And Kane's point is that this sensitivity, it's not a weakness, it's a different way of experiencing the world, one with its own strengths. Like they can be more perceptive, more attuned to subtleties that others might miss.
That makes a lot of sense. So nature plays a role, but nurture is important too, right?
Absolutely. Kane shares this great story about a highly reactive child who really struggled at first, but with a supportive and understanding environment, he was able to thrive.
So it's all about creating the right conditions for each individual to reach their full potential.
Exactly. Now, despite these temperamental differences, Kane also emphasizes the power of free will. Just because you're introverted doesn't mean you're stuck in a box.
So you can learn and grow beyond your natural tendencies.
You bet. And she uses public speaking as an example, something a lot of introverts find challenging.
I can relate to that.
But Kane, she reframes this fear. It's not that introverts can't do public speaking, it's just that their brains process stimulation more intensely, particularly in the amygdala, which is involved in fear responses.
Oh, so their brains are just working overtime in those situations.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But with the right techniques, like thorough preparation, reframing nerves as excitement, they can absolutely rock it.
So it's about working with your biology, not against it.
Precisely. And it's not just theory. Kane herself learned to become a confident public speaker, despite being an introvert. And she points to folks like Eleanor Roosevelt, who was known for her shyness but became a powerful advocate.
Wow, that's inspiring. So even if you're not naturally a social butterfly, you can still learn to command a room.
For sure. And this leads to a really interesting point about relationships and leadership. Kane argues that the depth and authenticity often associated with introverts, that can be way more valuable than superficial charm or like fake extroverted coolness.
So it's about genuine connection, not just putting on a show.
Right. She contrasts Franklin Roosevelt's charm, a classic extroverted trait, with Eleanor Roosevelt's quiet but undeniable moral strength.
So different styles, but both impactful in their own way.
Exactly. And Kane even suggests that sometimes extroverts might prioritize status or external validation over genuine connection.
Interesting. You think that's always the case?
Not necessarily, but it's something to consider. And Eleanor Roosevelt's work on human rights is a great example. It was driven by deep conviction, not the need to be popular or in the spotlight.
She was walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Right. And Kane also shares a heartwarming story about a long-lasting couple, both introverts, who found deep connection in their shared quietude. It's a beautiful reminder that strong bonds can be forged in stillness as much as in social frenzy.
Now, Cain also dives into how different cultures view introversion and extroversion, right? Like, America's love affair with being outgoing, it's not a universal thing.
Totally. And these cultural differences, they even show up in things like financial behavior. Cain contrasts America's tendency towards risk-taking, which some argue contributed to the 2008 crash, with Warren Buffett's more cautious introverted approach to investing.
So, like, slow and steady wins the race.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And Buffett's success is often attributed to his ability to think independently, to avoid getting caught up in groupthink, which can be a real danger in the financial world.
So being able to step back and see the bigger picture, that can be a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And Cain shares a really interesting story about a Chinese-American student who is constantly struggling to balance the expectations of American extroversion with the more reserved values of his family's culture.
Makes you realize how much our cultural background shapes how we see ourselves and how we interact with the world.
It really does. And this leads to what Cain calls the communication gap between introverts and extroverts. Their different needs for stimulation and downtime it can lead to some serious misunderstandings.
Like the extrovert might think the introvert is being standoffish, while the introvert might find the extrovert's energy overwhelming.
Bingo. And Cain's solution, empathy and compromise. It's all about understanding and respecting those differences, being upfront about your needs, finding a middle ground. That's how you bridge the gap.
So it's about meeting each other halfway.
Exactly. And Cain gives a really relatable example of an introverted husband and an extroverted wife figuring out how to navigate their different social needs. Like maybe you need some quiet evenings at home while she needs to get out and socialize.
Finding that balance, that's key.
For sure. Now, for all the introverts out there, Cain offers some really practical advice on how to thrive in a world that often feels designed for extroverts.
Like, how do you make the most of your strengths without feeling like you have to constantly be someone you're not?
Right. Well, it starts with self-awareness, knowing your strengths and embracing them. Like, introverts are often great at focusing, empathizing, thinking things through deeply. So find ways to leverage those strengths in your work and your life.
So play to your strengths, not your weaknesses.
Exactly. And just as important as setting boundaries, you got to protect your energy. That might mean seeking out quiet spaces, saying no to social events that drain you, being strategic about how you spend your time.
So it's about being intentional, not just letting life happen to you.
Exactly. Cain gives this great example of a scientist who thrives in the lab, where he can really focus on his research without a lot of distractions. And she also talks about how important it is for parents of introverted kids to understand their needs and advocate for them.
Like maybe their kid doesn't need to be in every after-school activity. Maybe they need some downtime to recharge.
Exactly. And instead of pushing them to be more outgoing, help them understand and embrace their introversion as a different way of being, not a deficit.
That's so important. Like you're not broken, you're just wired differently.
Right. And Cain points to the example of a shy boy who excelled at art once he was given the space and encouragement to pursue his passion.
So sometimes it's about finding the right outlet for your unique strengths.
For sure. And it's worth remembering that so many creative and influential figures, like J.K. Rowling, for instance, are introverts. Now, when it comes to careers, Cain suggests that introverts might thrive in roles that offer autonomy, where they can work independently and really dig into their tasks.
So not necessarily the jobs that require you to be schmoozing all the time.
Right. And she also talks about the importance of preparing thoroughly for meetings, even practicing what you're going to say beforehand so you can feel more confident contributing your ideas. And she's pretty critical of open plan offices, which can be really draining for introverts.
Yeah, all that noise and distraction, it can be tough to focus.
Totally. Cain shares a couple of great examples. One is an introverted lawyer who became incredibly successful by focusing on meticulous research and preparation, really owning his strengths. And another is someone who was able to negotiate a remote work arrangement, which gave him the flexibility and quiet he needed to do his best work.
So finding the right work environment is key.
It really is. At the end of the day, Cain's book is a powerful call for valuing both introverts and extroverts, recognizing that each brings unique strengths to the table.
It's about celebrating diversity and not trying to fit everyone into the same mold.
Exactly. We need a cultural shift that values reflection, persistence, sensitivity, all those quiet strengths that introverts often embody, alongside the energy and dynamism of extroverts.
It's about balance, right? Like yin and yang.
Perfectly put. And think about figures like Albert Einstein, whose solitary work literally changed the world. So I leave you this thought. Consider the quiet power that you or others around you might possess. How might a deeper understanding of introversion and extroversion enrich your understanding of yourselves and your relationships? Susan Cain's Quiet is a fantastic starting point for this exploration.
It's definitely a book worth checking out.